It's funny how like one little panel kind of uh, can make or break a story, right? It's one
Mhm.
little panel that really, if this had been an easy, if that pose had been like, oh, this is no problem, I'm yanking this door with all my energy, and it looks like it should happen, and you know,
Mhm.
like it's maybe I went to this one because it is a little bit more difficult, and um, you know, I have the energy to deal with it at the moment, right? And so, when you're really tired, you may want to go with some of the easier things, some of the things that
Mhm.
are just like, you can do in your sleep, whether that's like, like for some people, it could just be like people talking or something, or maybe it's
Yeah.
strong like buildings or whatever, things that may not require as much, um, headspace, brain power to figure out. Whereas this is kind of like, there is some importance to this, getting this
Mhm.
movement right. Like, um, and now that we've talked it through a little bit, I'm seeing that, right? Let's see.
Yeah, because this really is where the story begins, right? Up and before this, we're just sort of introducing a space and a something, but this is the moment where everything changes and we go from it just being like, "Oh, I didn't notice that door. Weird, must be another closet," to what is happening? And this motion is that moment that everything goes sideways for Sam.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to, so a couple of things I'm thinking about, like one of the other things I'm like, what is the other hand doing? Like if it's so
Mhm.
one of I'm gonna, I may have to lean into this kind of stuff since I don't normally do this live, but I may have to start posing myself. So it's opposite for you guys, but for me, this is the right pose,
Mhm.
right? And if I this is the complexity of like never having done this before. So let's say if I go this way,
Yeah.
technically now this is the right pose this way. Um, Although it's the opposite for me, but either way I can kind of envision it. What is this far hand doing here?
Yeah.
Right? If I'm yanking something, is it kind of almost like this hand here is almost like it's helping pull it in some way?
Yeah, because it's like initially it wouldn't be doing anything, right? Because it would just be, you go to open a door, the other arm just is at your side. But then if you go to pull it, nothing's happening. It's almost like it's trying to give you some leverage or something behind, right? Like just being like, ugh. Like it's now become part of it because a simple task is not so simple.
Yeah, that's right. Something that the person does on a daily basis of opening the
Yeah.
door is all of a
And you
sudden
think
like,
like, yeah, you would go to a door, your other hand doesn't even matter or whatever, but now it's like this is now trying to like you're pulling hard, the other hand's behind you. Um, could have been holding something that it had to drop or, anything, right? Like it's definitely part of this yank motion now that it wouldn't have been in the first try.
yeah. So yeah, okay. So baggy clothing,
Mhm.
but we want to show like okay, so now there's some other components. Do I have a tucked in shirt, or do we see the shirt kind of billow out? They're hunched, they have a bit of a hunch to them. It's a lot happening. Like
There's a lot
that's
happening in this one little panel. There's a lot going on. This is establishing a lot of the things in one space.
yeah. Um Okay, I'm getting it. It's you know what,
You
it's
are.
funny, it's starting to feel a little bit more. So we've got
The
a bit of a
uncomfortable
front.
motion is coming through now.
Yeah. So I try to I kinda saved the head for last, really. I'm not
Mhm.
I Although I got a bit of the feel of it, I wanna go back to the body, because generally you wanna, like, get, like, the center of it, like, started, like, like the chest, the hips, all that, really figure out like where their center of gravity is,
Mhm.
right? And so that's kind of where I was going with, starting with, and then, so I'm going back here. I start with the other parts, the extremities, a little bit later, the arms, the head, um, right? Those are like parts of the body that are important, but they're almost secondary, right? So
Mhm.
the first part is like getting that twist and getting that the chest and the hips to kind of line up properly so that you get that twist. Um, and then, so I'm wondering, I don't know if we'd actually see, is it this twist? I know I have it here. Let me see.
Well, because I mean, the other arm could be behind, it could be at the side, or it could be with both hands trying to open it, right? Depending.
Oh, would
Like,
there
how
be?
frustrated we are. Is it now, like, both hands are like, "Why aren't you working?" Right?
Ooh, that's
Because
okay.
actually that gives more energy to the pull by having both hands now, um, yanking on
Ooh,
this door.
okay. So that kind of changes from the original, but I think I like that a little bit
Mhm.
more because it gives a, um, I'm trying to get a really cool looking silhouette going here,
Yep,
right? Like something that feels, um, like that you would be able to kind of tell what was happening, if it was just in black, right? Um,
well, I actually think that both arms, like, both hands on the doorknob and the twist in the body and the hair kind of flying back actually gives a really good feeling for how awkward, uncomfortable, and unexpected this moment became.
mhm, mhm. I think so. I think so. Yeah. So this is like a key moment that we've changed slightly. If you've been following along, you know that there was the whole debate of like, I think it was was it page 5 where I'll go back to the thumbnail here. Yeah, or page 4 where we're like, what's the, that
Yeah,
the second
what
to
is the
last
movement?
panel? Yeah, and we're like, is it where you're looking, down more, or is it more, like of a fisheye? Like, we're all really trying to figure that out, and I think that, um, that like you really need to talk it through, and you really needed to, um, kind of, give it a little bit of like distance. And then once you did, I like, at least I saw it a little bit more clearly.
Agreed.
Um, so, like in this case, that's why I call these rough pencils, right? So, I'm still kind of really working some of this stuff out. Um, I don't know if this would take me this long normally, but because I'm working live or I'm working in front of a camera, this is unknown for me. So I'm probably not working a little bit. It's a little uncomfortable, if I have to be honest. It's not as, um, comfortable for me to, I may decide to like go to something else and then, go back to this, but I want this to be a little bit more cohesive. I want you guys to get something out of it as we're trying to figure it out. So, I'm working a little differently than I normally would, but also I'm not saying maybe this is a good way to work. I don't know.
Well, this also is a really complicated moment, right? Because it's trying to convey a lot, a lot happening in this one panel, essentially, right? So, out of all the ones on this page, this one's probably got the most work to do. So that's probably part of it as well. And we've, been refining the character as well and the motion all simultaneously live while you're trying to actually draw it. So there's been a lot of things happening at once, which I think is what led to this one, needing a little bit more massaging, just because this is the first thing we're doing in this size, and we're trying to answer a bunch of questions that will make everything else easier.
Yeah, that's right. So, that may end up happening is that you're working on something and, um, one part of it takes you much longer than something else. That's why it's really hard to gauge. Um, well, I'm actually gonna let's talk a little bit about like, if you have a client
Mm,
and they want to,
mhm.
sometimes clients want to know like, well, how much do you charge per page, or do you do it by time? And the
Yes.
thing about it is this. So you can see I'm really struggling with this here. I'm really having a hard time figuring this one out. It's taken me, like, I don't know where we're at time wise here. Um, I'm almost at an hour. Let's say I spent about 45 minutes just on this single
Mhm.
pose, trying to work it out, right? Like that's a lot of time to spend on one little part. The rest of it could take me much, much less time. I can get through maybe like I'll get through like the first panel much, much faster, or other panels much faster. And so it's a really hard thing to talk to somebody going, well, I know how long this is going to take, and I know how much time I'm going to spend on each part.
Yes.
You just don't, right?
No. Absolutely, and that's absolutely true. It's really, really hard to figure out how you charge for certain things. And a lot of times, clients do want to know, like, how many hours are you putting against this? Or is it, by page, by panel? Like, how are you charging? And I think, to your point, is it often evens out. And you might spend an hour on the single panel and then do two more in an hour, right? And so then it ends up kind of working itself out. But figuring out what number you come up with, how you rationalize it, how you explain it, and then how you can actually live by what you charge is a balance. And it does take some practice and experience, which is why a lot of times with people's first clients, they undercharge, right? Because they're not quite sure what to charge, how long it's going to take. And then if that client comes back to you a second time and it was like, great, we loved it. Can you do it again? And you're like, yes, here's my new price. It's like, well, you were less last time. It's like, but these are things I've learned. And this is, from working with you and how the changes and how we do things. It can be really tough to figure out how you value your time and your expertise, because it's not just how long it took you to do the thing, it's how long it took you to learn to do the thing and execute it well. And that has to be factored in too.
Yeah, that's right. Like every project is going to have like different things to solve, different
Mhm.
problems to solve that you hadn't quite had to deal with before. And therefore, like you could always you try to figure out something that's like an apples to apples comparison, that is something you've done before. But like like when we worked together on the story A,
Mhm.
and I had to figure out like how much to charge for the process of doing all of those spot illustrations essentially,
Yep.
right? I realized that like nobody exactly knew how many it would require. There wasn't like a guideline per se, but
Yep.
it was generally like, okay, for me to be able to do this in a way that would tell it properly, I'm guessing this is how much it's gonna take, but it was a lot more than I realized. The time that I
Mhm.
spent was a lot more than I
Yeah.
realized it would, and so that was it. I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna have to charge more next time because
Yeah. And that's
like,
what exactly what ends up happening. And also, another thing you always have to factor into is the client themselves, and how they are to work with, right? Are they show it to me and then once I see it, I'll know if I like it type of client? Are they someone who's very, they love your work. They're easy to work with. You know that they're going to give you feedback. It's going to be concise. It's going to be fast. It's going to be easy to understand, because those things add to costs as well, right? If you know it's a client that's going to take a lot of either hand holding, a lot of back and forth, they are very specific but aren't good at giving briefs. Like, these are things that you need to be able to work into your budget, because it's still time, right? And certain clients do take more managing than others.
yeah, that's right. It's not always easy to know until you actually start working together,
Hmm.
realizing, "Oh, okay, this person, um" they mean well, but they don't
Yeah.
exactly know. They said they knew what they wanted, but then all of a sudden they really didn't know what they want. And then you're like, you kind of changed things a little bit on me. So, I'm not going to charge you differently, but if we were work together, I would,
Bear
I've
that
done
in
that
mind.
before.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying you gotta bear that in mind next time, when you're gonna work together again.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's just it. I mean, early on in the process for me, I worked with, still work with this person and they had, uh, created like it was a screenplay script, and it was just like
Mm,
for me to adapt it from a screenplay to a comic book was a lot more work. And so I was like, oh well, I didn't know that it's going to be, I thought you knew more than you did initially, but
yeah,
that's on me. I didn't ask. I just assumed. I didn't ask. And so I
mhm,
was like, with the second book, I'm like, I got to charge you more, man. Like
yeah,
there's just
it
too
was
much.
bigger.
I had to do from the first one to adapt it from, so I was working on the script and drawing it, and they understood. They were like, "Okay, yeah, I get it. I see what you're saying." And I said, "Ideally, I'd like you to learn how to do this as a comic book so I don't have to do this." And
Yeah.
eventually they did, right? So,
And that's
they were
ideal. If they're willing to learn and change as well, that's a great client, right? To be able to
yeah.
be like, "Oh, understood," and not just say understood, but still go back to the back like the way that they had been before when they're like, "Oh, no problem. Like it'll be super smooth this time," and lying. But if they actually are listening to the feedback on your side and be like, "Yeah, and like I get the process was messy. Let's find a way to make it better." Another thing to also keep in mind is how many people are approving this. Are you working with a single
Mm.
person who has final say or someone who's going to be like, yeah, this is great. Let me show my boss. Let me show their boss. And now that is also a much longer and more complicated process with a lot more cooks in the kitchen and a lot more potential for having to change, adapt, redo things. And that's important to keep in mind for your time as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that is, I'm very lucky in that for the most part I've worked just with like a single person, or I've clarified with the person that was my lead on it, like, hey, am
Mhm.
I working with just you? Am I dealing just with you? Because if other people throw their input, do I have to listen to them? Can I just like, and so,
Yep.
yeah, those are things you have to really get clarified ahead of time so that you
Hmm.
know that like, you know who your lead person is, you know who has final say, you know if it's gonna, if they say to you it's gonna take a while for you to do something because there's gonna be multiple people looking at it, you may want to go, how did they want this? Like what is it they're looking for in this too? So maybe you need to talk to them too. Like there's a lot of it. It's every new project comes with new things to solve.
Absolutely, 100%, and that's the thing too is knowing what you're actually getting into can affect what something costs, right? And even having strict rules on rounds of revisions when you can make different types of changes. This speaks to comic books as well as, the film and TV and commercial world is making sure people understand what feedback you're giving at what time, right? So if you're looking at, let's say you happen to show them thumbnails because that was the arrangement that you had, that they're only looking at it for, overall feel, structure, and flow, not for like nuancy details, right? And then at the next stage, you're looking at it for the actual look of the character and the space and stuff like that. So because the last thing that you want is you get to, final color and it's all done and then they start commenting on what's in the room. It's like, well, that was a previous stage you had to make that comment. You can't make that comment now. And a lot of times it's educating the client on what they should be commenting on, what the door has closed on commenting on so that they know where to give feedback on what to make the process smoother because often they don't realize that the ship has sailed on certain parts of feedback depending on where you are in the process.
Yeah, that's right. It's ultimately the thing that you're gonna learn if you're starting off is that a lot of the rules you create are because of problems you have early on with clients that you didn't
Yeah.
think of implementing, you didn't think of talking about ahead of time, and then all of a sudden you're like, "Oh, well, that made that job really, really difficult because this person presented all these challenges that I hadn't even thought that to talk about beforehand." And, like it's you don't necessarily have to say whose fault it is. You can just be like, okay, from this point on, this is now a new rule I'm going to implement in, like whenever I have a new client, I'm going to talk about this and have them agree to it. You can put in your contract. You can just like have that conversation ahead of time to find out, is this okay? Like, are you
Mhm.
okay if this is implemented in there? Like, and ultimately what we're talking about is like setting up expectations. I think
Yes.
that when you are new and you don't set up expectations in a way where your client uh if you surprise your client, I didn't know this was going to do this, I didn't know you were going to do that, then all of a sudden you're like, that's where if you had said it ahead of time, you have it in writing somewhere, you can always go back and go, so you signed on to this. It says it right here. It's not I told you about it, and it's in
Yep.
you just forgot. And oftentimes when that happens, they go, oh, well, okay. Like
Right.
but, or if it's not in there, you said, oh, I swear we talked about this. Well, that's on you for not having put it in there somewhere. And,
It'll
uh,
be in there next time.
yeah, exactly.